to them who have read everything. Is the direction that she refers to that's not being followed the direction of what a resource-based economy is, of all the sociological factors of information, that need to be pointed out as information so people can digest it and begin to see the merit of this new institution? Or is the direction that apparently I'm taking charge of the direction of what people do in relationship to the Venus Project? And what I mean by that is that there's no objection to the direction that we've been promoting because the Zeitgeist movement has no direction. The only objection I see is with regard to whatever interests the Venus Project have in a temporal sense. For instance, the movie that is talked about by the major movie that would cost millions of dollars. I, as a filmmaker, had to very gently object to their interest in donations from the community. Originally, I said, okay, that's fine, but I thought there'd be a little more conversation about it. And then it just kind of came out of nowhere, boom, we're seeking donations for this major film. I said, okay, I really am not particularly happy considering the movement was based on trying to get money out of the way, have it based on time and not income. We never had a donation base for anything. In fact, the first thing I recommended, because it was brought up in New York, because Jacques has difficulty hearing. He has hearing aids that go, well, they're provided, by basically through his insurance, and they're not up to date. They're not high tech. I said, we should get a fundraiser together to get Jacques some new hearing aids. I got maybe 10 grand or something to get really good hearing aids. And I was hoping that would be a great little project and a great kind of sign of respect, of course, to Jacques. That didn't manifest, even though it was brought up. And instead, it jumped straight to this huge, huge project of multi-million-dollar film project, which, yes, they've been talking about for a long time, but I don't see the merit in it in the short term because of the extreme cost and really the need to get other people that work in the industry, that understand what it means to make a major motion picture, get them in part of this so a really serious understanding of what's really ahead of them can be made. I had connections to Ridley Scott. I was working on making a deliberate package that would move amongst the higher-ups of people I knew in Los Angeles. And unfortunately, all that got, of course, shot in the foot with this sort of insolent disbanding. And I just want to reiterate the fact that all I've done is navigate people's interests within the movement. If you can find any example of me where I'm suddenly acting like Jacques and inventing my own direction as far as the social system, I'd like to see that. I don't think I've done that. I can't even think of a moment that I haven't religiously sourced Jacques in everything that I've done. So that was an initial grievance which was questioned, and no answer was made as to what the supposed flaw in the, quote, direction was. And that's very unfortunate. The second grievance that came up was that the Zeitgeist movement isn't educated enough about the direction to be able to promote it. Now that's a very broad statement because it's basically qualifying thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And if that is the case, well, whose fault is that? We've done nothing but try to absorb as much information as possible. Jacques' book, the PDF, the videos that have been made, all with approval of the Venus Project. Why is something missing? What exactly is the mystery? And I wasn't quite sure, and when that question was posed as well to Roxanne, nothing was stated with respect to that. So I could go through a number of other things that are brought up here, and I'm trying to avoid all the attacks on me. If someone has a problem with me, well, tell me what it actually is. I met Jacques and Roxanne in January, plenty of time to bring up anything that they wanted to bring up, and nothing was brought up. Everything seemed fine. So within the scope of, well, considering when Jacques' initial video came out, which was very kind of insulting to everyone, it's been only a number of weeks. So the question is, what happened during that period of time? Because nothing was brought up to me. And if they have a problem, why don't they bring it up? If the direction isn't correct, tell us what the right direction is. None of these questions have been answered. What has been answered, and where the truth really lies with this, is very simple. Number one, my voiced opposition, which was very subtle, by the way, yet in support, I just simply didn't want to expose the community to donations for something that might not manifest for their movie. My voiced opposition for their movie rubbed them the wrong way because I'm not blindly going along with every commercial interest they want. Now, please note, On the Zeitgeist Movement site, we have for 3 years promoted donations to the Venus Project without question. I've never questioned them about how much money they've gotten or what they're doing with it or anything. It's just not my business, and I trust them. And when this came up, it was a multiple slap in the face, because first of all, if you want to know my justification, A, the whole movement was based not on this, as I described earlier. B, putting all your eggs in one basket with wanting millions of dollars for a movie in the current climate is irrational. As a filmmaker, knowing the Zeitgeist film series is as popular as it is, do they think they're going to trump that? In the sense of, unless they have a huge multi-million-dollar foundation with a real big-time director and about $20 million just for promotion alone, which is the average cost for major motion pictures, they have to promote the film. They can't just expect the community to magically pick it up. That's something that only Zeitgeist has been able to accomplish, that the community chooses to try and promote the ideas. The release of Zeitgeist Moving Forward was a community effort. I lost tons and tons of money on all of that, and fortunately, though, the money that was generated by different chapters, they were able to utilize that for Z-Day, which at the end of the day was the entire point. I have no sour grapes about it. The movie was a problem. The movie that was supposed to be used eventually is going to be used, apparently, to fund the city system. Now, I will leave it to all of you to do the math probabilistically about the odds of them making a huge movie, spending exorbitant amounts of money, probably, most likely, and then selling that movie to the public, making enough profit, billions of dollars perhaps, to move into a city system. It would be different if the film was relatively cheap and not as high budget as their expectations are. I could easily see that, but I find it a little bit improbable. If I had millions of dollars, if millions of dollars was ever generated, there are all sorts of technical things, very critical technical things that could be brought out for public display. Interdisciplinary teams could be hired to take on certain goals. And that's the way I'd see that money be more productively spent. Another temporal film that goes in one ear and right out the other in this short attention span culture, in a world where $100 million films are made constantly, and very few of them make legitimate profit, except over the long course of time. So we could rebuild Wardenclyffe Tower. We could do all sorts of engineering attributes. We could more funding on ideas such as Wolfram Alpha, getting engineers and programmers to build the central database, or at least elements of it that could be shown to the world to show how decision-making processes can be arrived at through AI to remove human opinion. Many, many things. Instead, let's just make another movie. So I hope everyone understands that, and I still support their movie, and I wish they hadn't burnt that bridge, because I probably could have helped them. I just didn't want the community to feel like this was something that they were obligated to spend money on, because frankly, the end goal of it is, again, highly improbable. The next issue has to do with myself, and apparently the fact that, according to Roxanne, I think I know more than Jacques, which has got to be one of the most erroneous things I've ever heard, nor have I ever claimed such a thing. I don't know shit. I am simply trying to gather information and funnel it out as the sponge that I am, and that's all any of us really are in the end. On no point, the absurdity of that accusation is really there for the provocative nature of it, so they have an easier way to justify what they are choosing to put out there, which is really complete bullshit. Because I get in a forefront position, because I've stuck my neck out for so long, because I take the abuse of everybody, because I'm the one that has tried my best selflessly, going out with no monetary gain, with a battered ego, with all the abuse that comes forward from being in any pivotal position, because I've chosen that perseverance, suddenly my popularity is now a threat to apparently Jacques, I guess, and now because people reference me, because in an interview they might make a poor comment, oh, so this is your idea. What am I supposed to say? No, this is not my idea, this is Jacques' idea. What am I supposed to say that over and over and over again so that credit establishment can always exist? I'm just talking information that I've learned, and it's information that Jacques learned too. He didn't just magically coalesce this information. And that apparently is a problem too, and that was a very insulting thing to think that I am in the position to want to be on a center stage, as Jacques actually put it, and if anyone actually knew me personally, you know that that is the complete opposite of everything I've ever intended. As an aside, I initially stated when I first heard Jacques' tirade, I said, okay, if they're not happy with what I'm stating, then I'm going to let them be their own spokesman. This is why I announced when I first heard Jacques' grievances that I was stepping down as an official spokesman because, well, first of all, I've been exhausted by it anyway, and I had been intending to do it for quite a while, and I'd made those announcements periodically in different platforms, on different platforms. So that really shouldn't have come as that much of a surprise. But as of now, obviously, I'm retracting that, and I, as the initiator, as I have been, unfortunately can't take any pullback at this stage because of what has to happen now with restructuring, which I'll get to in a moment. So it's a multiple insult to me because they obviously don't even regard my entity anymore. Now I'm just another obstacle, and now they're inventing reasons as to why, so they can preserve their establishment. And that's the third point. This is about establishment, preservation of ego, and monetary relationships. And all three of those points disappoint me greatly. I don't know what else to say. They're going to continue. I wish them the best. The door is always open for them to come back, even though I strongly doubt that. I will continue to promote the ideas of the Venus Project one way or another. It doesn't have to have the name the Venus Project. These are arbitrary attributes. I'm sorry to say, if you live in a world where you identify any ideology with an individual or organization and you refuse to develop beyond that, that's a very detrimental state of mind, non-progressive. I'm curious to see, frankly, what the Venus Project does on its own. There's no competition here. There's no such thing. There are similar goals, but the Zeitgeist movement isn't going to stop. It's going to move forward. And this basically brings me to the restructuring issues that are really the most important points here. One thing that has been dominant with the movement, and that's been the blind respect to the Venus Project's wish to not have any third-party interference. And what that means is that I have kind of a lack of integrity, frankly, kind of sided with them with the idea that no other organization can really be involved unless they accept 100% everything that the Venus Project states. I'm no longer interested in doing that. We have to start bridging different groups with different angles for different purposes. For example, one way or another, we're heading down a slippery slope to economic crises. I was looking at the cover of the Times, and it was showing the absolute debt of America and the huge problems that are manifesting from that, and it's about to hit capitulation, which God knows what the ramifications will be once the hammer falls and the chickens come home to roost for America, not to mention the U.S. dollar and everything that's going to carry over with all the problems that will arise on top of all the other ecological and social issues that are already dominant. But anyway, that's for another conversation. But these issues there needs to be help for people. We have to do something to help people on a basic level. And that also, that's also just a wonderful thing in and of itself and gives more credibility to the movement as a larger order institution. We have to start working on multiple levels, in other words. The Zeitgeist Media Festival is also going to be a global food drive, by the way. This is something that was brought up by a friend of mine, a brilliant idea. He works a food drive. So what we're going to do, and this, it's just an example of many different projects, since it's a resource as opposed to money, the food drive is a tremendously good idea. And when people come to, say, the LA event, granted these are at-cost events, but if they do choose to bring food, they get a discounted ticket price. And I think that's a great motivation. And I want to incorporate everyone across the world that's going to engage the media festival to do this as well. Global food drive. Many other issues as far as helping the community. Time banks. Doing things to start to bridge those doing things that basically people that are suffering monetarily that can help them gain resources that they need through non-monetary means, which of course is important and in line with what we do. If a time bank was able to manifest large enough, while it's going to meet and help people, meet people's needs, help them that are suffering in the economic issue. I mean, there's 84,000 homeless people, if I remember correctly, in Los Angeles alone. There's so many people starving right now in Los Angeles, which is just amazing when you look at how wealthy the environment actually is and how many resources are around. But we can create a way for people to get their needs met, but to also operate to dissipate the system because of the